In an essay in Aeon Magazine entitled Rules in Space, social scientist Marko Kovich points out that right now we still have no governing framework for space colonization whatsoever. And that's absurd, considering the weighty consequences our spacefaring might have on our entire civilization, or ones beyond even. That's why Kovich says space colonization governance should be a top global priority today, and he points out four main challenges that we need to grapple with. The first is, who's allowed to colonize? 107 countries have signed the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which bans any country from claiming any celestial resources for their own. But it doesn't get specific enough to answer the question if a country or a company like SpaceX builds a habitat on, say, the moon. Does that mean they own the land that it's on? And are they allowed to do questionable activities like mining or setting up military bases? The second challenge is governance in the colonies. According to the treaty, citizens are supposed to abide the laws of their respective countries here on Earth. But while that works for, like, the International Space Station, where communication with Earth is pretty stable, how will it work with a Mars colony during communication blackouts? Kovich says we'll need to hammer out what local conflict resolution looks like. Should it be democratic, or will that be too tricky in high-pressure environments? The third challenge Kovich identifies involves the issues of secession or independence. We certainly do not need to have countries on Earth warring with space colonies who are fed up with being bound to rules of a planet they no longer live on. Eventually, they should be pretty independent and self-sustaining. So what do we need to do in order to make that transition as peaceful and blood-free as possible? And the last challenge Kovich identifies is what he calls the problem of pan-human governance, meaning all of humankind working together. He suggests setting up a kind of UN where all space colonies are represented that can work to create unified policy across all human colonies or others out there in the universe. And then he wraps it up by saying we can either do nothing and let history take its course, or we start defining space colonization policy now, building up to a sort of space colony UN in baby steps. Considering the fact that we're ramping up our business in space even more now than we were in 1967, and considering how brutal colonization has been right here on Earth, I'd say we better get on that right now.